belong to man and always belong to man. Well, what's he saying? We've gotten rid of one boss. Oh, who's the boss now? Us. I mean, I really admire Stirner from, going, what? We've gotten rid of one boss, imaginary boss.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've made this startling discovery, Feuerbach, that we're the boss.
Mm.
Is man supernatural? Do we rule the universe? I mean, the Christians believe God ruled the universe. Fair enough, that was their story. You've said that one is false. Oh, we're the boss, which is actually what Feuerbach was tripping over. And this is what this whole business, Kenneth Smith has claimed, that Christianity built itself on the despair that was felt by the idea of the men that had made themselves the boss in the most extreme form. That there has to be something else to rule other than the emperor as boss, man as boss. Okay, I can see you're rather worried by a weekly turn of events with what's his name again?
No, I think we got the measure of him. He's the character that he is, but he's certainly not going to, be an obstruction to the proceedings. But as I say, it's not my group. So no, I'm not worried. No. But yeah, it's noteworthy, isn't it?
Noteworthy.
Well, well, we've talked about this before. There's something going on with certain people, and you just sort of wonder about what exactly their story is. But we've all got
I
a particular
think
cross to bear.
I suppose it's a learning experience in my life. We start out when we're kids, we have a very simple, generalized view of the world,
Hmm.
and this is what Kierkegaard said. Kierkegaard was talking really about maturity, and most people are living on the level of kids, and they think that the world is a big family and their parents will look after them. And it's all just a big playground for them. Does that make sense? That I suppose I started to think, well, maybe this philosophy business, I'm going to take it more seriously than I did before.
Mm-hmm.
It's a more critical question than just the world as a big playground for me.
Okay.
Well, I've always used the term that people push their own wheelbarrows. They've come along and they've come to sell their idea rather than learn.
Right.
And as Goethe said, what did Goethe say about learning? Wisdom is crystallized pain. If you expect to learn things in an easy way, you're not learning. The facts are gonna hurt, as Rick was saying. The facts aren't always going to please you. you're going to have to swallow stuff that's painful. I find it all a bit unbelievable, the whole idea that man has a spirit, like I've been told, and I probably believe it, apes that fell out of trees. And yet we've got all this culture and we're believing all this culture. I'm still not entirely sure, but it's sort of rather convincing that there is something called a culture. How do you think Rick went today?
As I've said before, the man has a patience of a saint. This is why I couldn't do the job he does, because I would be too much of a contentious element.
You mean being nice to people all the time?
Well, yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, I can aspire to have that sang-froid, as we say, but on my best days I get there, but very often I fail.
I suppose I was just getting a bit annoyed, it's going made the bit. Let's explore the question of a priori. Don't worry, I'll get to it in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
An hour later.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I didn't get to tell you. So on the well, I did send you besides the Hellblazer, there was 3 solo issues. Judas Coin, and one is Sergio Aragonés and one is Paul Pope. And the Judas Coin and Sergio Aragonés, I think you can read those entirely. That would be about, I think, probably about 120 pages altogether. Now, the one about the Paul Pope, the only one there that you read is the first story, which is, what is it? Knossos.
Okay, Judas Coin, and I haven't actually even looked at them yet.
Right. If you open up,
We've got Judas Coin, Solo 11, and
that's
Paul
right.
Pope.
So yeah.
So it's 51 pages, Paul Pope.
It's
That's
called The
not too
Problem in
much.
Knossos. It's the first one. You don't have to read anything after that. It's just
110 for the Judas Coin. Oh, Knossos. So Paul
The
Pope and
Problem in Knossos, and
Problem in
that's
Knossos.
the only one there, and you can skip the rest of them. Just wanted
And
to let you know that.
51 pages for Solo. So, okay.
And I think you'll enjoy the Sergio Aragonés. And but for Paul Pope, yeah, just the Problem in Knossos.
Well,
Nothing else.
what else is on? So, well, a pair of binoculars. I
Ah,
like about binoculars.
one.
I used to like cameras. What I used to like about cameras?
One.
Glass, brass, and cogs. That was cameras 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I just love them. And then they became bits of electronic stuff,
Yeah.
and I lost interest. But the beauty of binoculars is the revolution hasn't quite struck yet.
Yeah.
There's still metal and glass, and I can relate to that. When it becomes all electronic stuff and I'm looking through and everything's gone electronic, I wonder, will I still be interested?
Yeah. Great line I heard once. I've seen the modern world. It's not to my taste.
Oh, right. Who said that?
I think Warren Ellis, and I think the only Warren Ellis thing we ever read was oh no, he did Cressy. Remember when we did that one? He was the author of that, and he did Transmetropolitan. That was a number of years ago, but those I think are the two that we read of his. We'll probably do more eventually of him, sooner or later. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm sort of critical of rhetoric now that there's just so much time spent on rhetoric in these groups.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, rhetoric is useful in illustrating your point because, if you just said it without rhetoric,
Yeah.
it's probably not going to get across. But you can't keep on adding to the rhetoric where the original point is just this sort of tiny bit, because the world is nigh. We don't know. We could be coming to the end. And I see in philosophy people who are arguing about things like we have forever. And I'm starting to wonder, really, do we have forever? If there is something to it all, if there's some real meaning in it other than, the apes fell out of a tree and got the wrong idea.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'm questioning the amount of rhetoric that's involved. That a lot of people, there's just so much rhetoric in what they're saying.
Yeah. Well, my contention is no one else is as interesting as Rick is. So I would rather hear hear Rick talk for the entire 3 hours rather than anyone else, because no one else is going to provide that amount of value that Rick does. You know?
Well, you could always invite Phil back.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'm finding it a bit mysterious that he's disappeared because he.
I'm not inclined to think about that too much.
Well, it seems he's been in other groups. So
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I don't have anything to do with it because my conscience is clean. Let's put it that way. Wash my hands of the whole thing. But, don't look, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if I ever, yeah, I've told you this before. It flits through my mind of maybe doing something, but it would be invite only. It would not be open to anyone. Very, very select few. But it just flits through my mind. I probably won't do it.
yeah, well, Rick's certainly advanced in his style, though. He's a lot more colourful than he was a few years ago.
You ever go back to
So
watch the early ones?
the early ones.
Hard to believe we're at 6 years now. We've got them all on a
I
spreadsheet.
get the feeling he sort of perfected his art a bit, and particularly in more recent times.
Sure. Well, it's to be expected. Sure.
Is there anything else you want to say?
Do you know who Thomas Piketty is? Capital and Ideology.
Thomas Piketty.
Capital and Ideology. Piketty. Surely you know Piketty. Capital and Ideology. Piketty.
Capital N.
Capital and Ideology.
Oh, right. Okay. Capital and ideology.
Well, the thing is, I mean, it made quite a significant splash when it came out, and just everybody started
Oh, is he being bumped off yet?
talking about it. I have no idea. I mean, I haven't read the book, but
Seems if you say something really significant, you get bumped off these days.
well, it made quite an impact. I'm surprised you hadn't heard of it or him.
I might have, but I just,
Yeah, I'm sure it probably passed by your eyes at some point.
it's just so much stuff these
People have
days.
really, just really, really taken to it.
And I assume you haven't read it.
I haven't read it, but okay, so here's why I'm bringing it up because here is the graphic novel adaptation of Thomas Piketty's Capital and Ideology, and I'll let you get a little bit of an idea here what it's going to be.
Oh, right. So there's a comic book version, is it?
This is the comic book adaptation of Thomas Piketty's Capital and Ideology,
Looks
and I just wanted
fascinating.
to ask, are you up for doing it one of these weeks?
Yep,
Okay.
definitely.
I think you get the idea, right? It really made quite a splash when it came out. People just really couldn't stop talking about it. It's
So I wonder what the upshot of his what's the headline of his grand narrative?
it's a very popular book. There's been quite a lot that's been written about Thomas Piketty, Capital and Ideology. Quite a lot. You'll have no trouble finding quite a lot of.
I suppose when people start talking about justice and the injustice, and I reflect on it. Well, how just am I? It seems we're more worried about ourselves being treated justly by others
Yeah.
than oneself being just towards the other. Seems to be it. It's the big line, really. That's why I
Well,
always suspect people who bring up the term justice.
well, that's the idea of what you count as important, and that comes down to values. You know, egocentric, ethnocentric, cosmocentric. It's
Anthropocentric.
yeah, it's ever expanding circles of value. you start with egocentric. I'm the only thing that's important. That what's good for me is what's important. And then you expand that to your family, expand that to your neighborhood, expand that to your nation, expand that to all of humanity, expand that to all living beings, expand that to the entire cosmos. But it's rare that anybody gets past egocentric. But those higher levels of value certainly do exist. They're rare, but they exist.
I'll see what Copilot thinks of it.
You might call it love. That might be a word you might use, possibly.
Where have you encountered love
That's
in your
that's
life?
that's a word that seems to be in ill repute these days, but it's possible to use that. Love,
Okay, Thomas Piketty's Capital and
obscure
Ideologies
term, right?
is a sweeping, data-rich exploration of how societies justify inequality and how those ideologies evolve. Yeah, I sort of noticed that's the point I've been making recently. You know, you look at the map of Europe in World War Two, and you have, Hitler conquering Europe, and you got all these fascist states in Europe. Most of Europe was fascist or semi-fascist, and then you had the democracies. Britain, Holland, France, well, Czechoslovakia, but the hallmark democracies were the ones that had huge slave empires overseas. The sort of I started to think, oh yeah, it's right. You know, the Germans in World War One thought that was a bit unfair, and they should have an empire as well. But the states which had the liberal societies were the ones with these huge overseas slave empires. And it suddenly occurred to me that these liberal societies could only afford their liberal democracy by getting huge chunks of the rest of humanity to work for them. But they were the ones saying, well, we're the great ones, the wicked Germans are up against our fine liberal democratic sentiments. But there's that element there in the background. I suddenly woke up, yeah, my God. Britain had a huge empire, which it wasn't democratic in the rest of the world. It was only democratic at home. Well, that's a very fine metaphysical theory you've got going there. You know what Max Stirner would call it.
Hmm. Well, I liked what Joe put in the chat. All models are wrong. Some are useful. I used to listen to of all things an astrologer, but she would always say, "Believe nothing, entertain possibilities."
So the key stages of development, okay. Who commands this development? Who controls it? It's getting back to that bit between Stirner and Feuerbach.
Um, I used to say I think we're about 150 years away from actually rolling up our sleeves and getting down to work and actually fixing everything that's going wrong. I used to say 150 years, but now I realize that was way too optimistic. It's going to take a lot longer than that. We were going in the right direction briefly, very briefly, but yeah, we took a U-turn.
The humanity in when was things going well in your estimation?
Oh my goodness. Isn't that a long conversation? There was a very, 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 very very brief moment in the post-war period where it actually things could have been constructed well, and it just started. It just started, but unfortunately, basically what happened was we've talked about this before. I've told you this before. Basically, the 1960s happened. You had an awakening of consciousness. You had an awakening of higher values, and the powers that be realized what was going on and realized that was a danger and realized they had to shut that down instantly. And they did everything they could to get rid of that particular direction that we just started to walk down. But yeah, well,
This is a
we're
curious
now in the grip of
question.
a very, very long program of control and global,
Where you're
corporate
almost
global corporate
suggesting
fascism.
an Illuminati.
Well, as I've said before, it's not a conspiracy. You can find out what they're doing. They're very open about what they're doing. They put out press releases. They're not hiding. They'll tell you what they're doing openly. They'll tell anybody who cares to listen. Just nobody's paying attention. It's not a conspiracy. They don't hide. They do it very openly. It's all out there. Just no one's paying attention. Until that changes, until we are at the mercy of a global corporate regime, an oligarchy, and until that changes, there's not going to be any progress on this planet. And
Well,
that's not
capitalism
changing.
is always an oligarchy.
No, not always. No, there hasn't always been an oligarchy. Not always. No.
Well, capitalism itself is always its nature is to
You have
be
to
oligarchy.
you can put the starting point, sure, at the Industrial Revolution. You can put the starting point at maybe the Reformation. Sure, you can put the starting point at modernity, basically. But we're talking about the status of humankind since modernity, basically since separation of church and state. Basically, you could say that would be the starting point. It's the same situation now. It used to be that the entire planet was at the mercy of the church, and then we got the separation of church and state. Not to get rid of the church. Church can stay, do its thing, but it can't have any influence on the state and on the polity and policy. They have to be separated. So now, what we need now is a separation of commerce and state. Not to get rid of commerce. Commerce can stay, but it can't have any influence on laws and how people are conducting themselves,
Well, you seem to be suggesting
which is what we have now.
a variety of synarchy.
Yeah.
Let's see, it was Rudolf Steiner. He borrowed that for his threefold commonwealth. He believed in the recognition of the separation between culture, politics, and economics.
Yeah. Well, basically, we live under a global corporate regime. It's an international, intersectional, interconnected.
I noticed the U-turn in the 80s. It amazed me that sort of prior to the 80s, the capitalists appeared to be conservative.
Hmm.
and they were backing the conservative parties, and then they flipped. They suddenly realised the socialists are such amazing, useful idiots. It was weird to watch it. I was born in a time when capitalism was conservative and saw it flip to socialism, which is sort of like I was saying to the socialists, well, you can have the universities and you can have certain aspects of society. And by the way, you know, since we're going to make everybody save money for their retirement, you can sit on all the committees of the retirement funds and make yourself rich. Just give us the economy. We want that. Yeah, I'm certainly not a believer in, capitalism as the absolute boss. Now, this is a weird thing. Ayn Rand actually had the same opinion.
Wow. Yeah.
She didn't believe capitalism on its own was a good thing. She believed it had to be guided by ethics.
Yeah.
She prayed of two types of capitalism, ethical capitalism and that other variety, which is very unethical. And she condemned the unethical.
Right.
But certainly, yeah, it's almost, yeah, you could almost, it almost looks like the, what would we say, Kubrick's vision in Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah.
That there is, are they meeting, discussing the future of humanity with their vision? It's as though every group wants the world to reflect their disposition. The foxes all want flat dinner plates, and the storks all want tall vases. And we all seem to operate on that principle that we would like the world to be of such a form that it serves our minimalist effort, and it's everybody else that's struggling. But, you know, who are the capitalists? What's their game? Do they have meetings? Is there an Illuminati? Well, I put it down to instinct. I find it a bit difficult, but then again, they do have that Davros meeting, I suppose. And they discuss the future of humanity. And yeah, it's a curious question. The tragedy for me, of course, that there's both good and evil people in the world which are smarter than me. And I realise that I might be already a loser because there's bigger and stronger people than me in the universe. And my strategy might be hiding from the Bigfoot that's going to come down and squash me. Okay, so the vision of expanding to the universe, whereas Max Stirner was going the other way. He theorised going back to the ego, I suppose. But I think you've got a point there. I do find them annoying that you've got people who are egotistical with the truth, not egotistical with things they want, fair enough, but they can't see outsides that box of egoism, just on the wisdom level. I can understand that their main goal in life is serving their own ends materially, but the inability to sort of recognize the bigger picture than that, or not that you have to follow the bigger picture, but simply recognize that it's there. That's the question. It's where I get that line, shoot the messenger. That the worst thing you can do is to shoot the messenger. That you don't have to agree with the messenger or do what they tell you to do. Even though it looks like the better wisdom, you can follow your instincts, but be open to listening to the message. You don't have to follow it, just listen. But we live in a world which so fears the message that they have to shoot it. They don't even want to face the question. Does that make sense?
Basic psychology.
Oh, well, yeah, better get a move on. I guess I'll see you next time.
Okay, sure. All right. Bye.
Okay, see you, Dave.